Colonialism and urban change. We will discuss about the history of cities, towns, and lives of ordinary people, how towns and cities emerge as economic centers, trading centers, capital towns, or pilgrimage centers. Colonialism means a policy by which a nation maintains or extends its control over foreign dependencies, or the subjugation of one country or countries by another country by fair or foul means. It includes political occupation along with economic exploitation and social domination. Urban change means the change in the location and status of different towns and cities due to the change in the political condition of the country. Colonialism refers to the principle or practice of having colonies. It also refers to the economic, political, and social policies by which colonies are governed by the sovereign country or their colonial power, usually based on the maintenance of a market distinction between the governing country and the subordinate colonial population. The colonization of India had begun in 1510. All the European settlements and the European traders in many ports and inland cities continued throughout the Mughal period, but without having any marked impact on the level of urbanization in India. It was only in the early 19th century that the British established a firm territorial hold in India, and India came under the British Crown in 1858. From that time until 1947, the British exercised unquestioned authority over the entire subcontinent, including the princely states. De-urbanization or urban decline in the 19th century. The consolidation of territorial power by the British in 1800 and the end of a period of political instability brought about, surprisingly, a period of stagnation and decline of urban centers in India, which lasted for well over a century. The 19th century urban scenario stands out in contrast to the Mughal period of urban growth. The main reasons for the decline of cities during this period are the lack of interest on the part of British in the prosperity and economic development of India, the ushering in of the Industrial Revolution in England in the later half of the 18th century, thus altering the very complexion of urbanization in England and in India at a later stage. Around 1800, India had 16 cities with a population of over 1 lakh or more, and about 1500 towns spread over all parts of the country. Only one-third of the towns and cities were located in the Ganga Plains. Western and southern India were comparatively more urbanized, while eastern India was the least urbanized. A major feature of the early 19th century was the decline of the pre-British cities. Prominent among the cities that lost their former importance were Agra, Delhi, Lucknow, Ahmedabad, Srinagar, Cambay, Patna, Gaya, Baroda, Indore, Tanjore, etc. The urban population of India had declined from 11% in 1800 to 8.7% in 1872. Calcutta by this time had become the premier city of India with a population of nearly 8 lakh. And while the pre-British cities showed a marked decline in population, the British cities of Calcutta, Bombay, and Madras showed remarkable growth. Decline of cities. The decline of a large number of urban places in India during the 19th century was primarily due to the negative attitude of the British towards the traditional industries of India, particularly the cotton textile industry. This attitude was largely a result of the Industrial Revolution in England and the growth of the textile industry in Manchester. By the end of the 19th century, England had emerged as a major industrial economy of the world, and India was the main market for British goods. India's traditional urban centers, which depended on the export of its industrial products, declined rapidly as a consequence. Another factor contributing to the decline of the urban centers of the pre-British period was the introduction of the network of railroads in India, starting from 1853. By 1900, the rail network had been fully developed and covered all parts of the country. The railway industry resulted in the diversion of trade routes into different channels, and every railway station became a point of export of raw materials, and they lost their old importance. On the positive side, the railways contributed to the growth of the metropolitan cities and even some of the major inland towns. The railways also helped in the introduction of modern industries in the metropolitan cities of Calcutta, Bombay, Madras, and Kanpur. British influence on urbanization. During the 150 years of British rule, India's urban landscape went through a radical transformation. The major contributions of the British to the Indian urban scene are emergence of metropolitan cities. By the start of the 20th century, Calcutta, Bombay, and Madras had become the leading cities of India, although none of these had a population of a million. The older cities of the Mughal period had all dwindled into small towns and cities. Thus, Delhi, Varanasi, Ahmedabad, Agra, and Allahabad had population of around 2 lakh only, while Calcutta, the leading city, had a population of over 9 lakh. The landscape of the colonial cities showed distinct signs of European influence. Calcutta, Madras, and Bombay were leading administrative, commercial, and industrial cities. In these cities, the focal point was the central commercial area with tall European-style buildings, numerous streets, and by-lanes. These cities were well connected with rail and road transportation. The city's administrative center was also very impressive. Dalhousie Square in Calcutta and Fort St. George in Madras were close to the central commercial area. These areas too had massive buildings of Roman styles. The Indian residential quarters were, however, shabby and crowded. In 1911, the capital of the British Indian Empire was shifted from Calcutta to Delhi, and an entirely new city, New Delhi, was built, which got completed by about 1935. Hill stations and plantation settlement. The British, who came from a cool temperate climate, found the Indian summer season inhospitable. They found an escape in the hills where they could spend summer. Even the national capital was shifted from Delhi to Shimla for 6 months. Between 1815 to 1870, there were 80 hill stations in different parts of India. Shimla, Nainital, Mussoorie, Darjeeling, Shillong, Mahabaleshwar, and Kodaikanal were the major hill stations. These hill stations originally catered to the needs of the British population in India. In course of time, native population migrated to these towns to seek employment. Tea and coffee plantations also generated another type of settlement in the hills of Assam, Kerala, Tamil Nadu, and Karnataka. These settlements were, however, small in size. Civil lines and cantonment. The urban landscapes of a large number of Indian towns and cities, which originated long before the arrival of the British, were modified during the British rule. The modifications were most noticeable at administrative centers of the British Raj, the provincial capitals, the district headquarters, and the tehsil-level administrative centers. The civil lines were a new addition to all big administrative centers. The cantonments were most often built near major towns for security reasons. The civil lines and cantonments existed as native city to accommodate the British civilian and military personnel. The civil lines contained administrative offices, courts, and residential areas for the officers. The civil lines and cantonments had large open spaces, bungalows, planned roads, etc. In all, 114 cantonments were built during the late 19th and early 20th century. They were mostly concentrated in the plains of Punjab and western Uttar Pradesh, while the southern states had only 5 cantonments. These were built for armed forces. There were separate barracks for Indian soldiers, railways, industrialization, and urbanization. The introduction of railways in India in the later half of the 19th century contributed to the emergence of a national network of urban places in which the metropolitan cities formed the primary foci, supported by the lakh cities as satellite centers. The railways contributed to the expansion of trade and introduction of modern industry, and thus indirectly helped the process of urbanization. New railway towns also emerged in various parts of the country. For example, Jamalpur, Bihar, Voltaire, Andhra Pradesh, Bareilly, Meerut, Uttar Pradesh, Nagpur, Maharashtra, etc. Industrialization appeared in India quite late. Cotton textiles in Bombay and Ahmedabad, jute in Calcutta, and coal mining in the Damodar Basin were the early industries. Kanpur and Jamshedpur also emerged as big cities. Most industries were located in the colonial metropolitan cities of Bombay, Calcutta, and Madras. Urban amenities and urban administration. One of the major benefits of the British rule was the improvement in civic amenities in some major cities, at least piped water supply, street lighting, domestic electricity supply, sewerage, modern shopping areas, parks, playgrounds for recreation were established in a number of cities. Urban administrative bodies were established to look after civic amenities in a number of cities from 1882. These municipalities were primarily concerned with the collection of local taxes, maintenance of roads, removal of garbage and night soil, primary education, and public health. Town planning was not introduced during the British period, although legislation for the improvement of slum areas was enacted in the first 2 decades of the 20th century in Bombay and other provinces. Public works. Lord Dalhousie, 1841 to 1856, set up a separate public works department in every presidency. Earlier, the military member was in charge of public works department, and as such, the work on the civil side was neglected. The new department took up the task of constructing roads, canals, and bridges. During the first half of 19th century, the Ganga and the Yamuna canals, Badi Dwab Canal in Punjab, and the Godavari and Krishna canals in South India were constructed. In the later half of the century, Agra Canal 1874, Sirhind Canal 1878, and several other canals in Punjab were constructed between 1890 and 1899. Leading cities of India. With the rise of the English East India Company as a political power, many new towns came into being. The chief among them are Madras, Bombay, and Calcutta. Madras, now Chennai. Madras, or modern Chennai, is an important port on the east coast, or Coromandel coast of India. Its acquisition and expansion has an interesting story. Before settling in Madras, the English landed at Masulipatam in 1611, and 2 years later, they were permitted to erect a fortified factory there. But because of the opposition of the Dutch, they shifted the center of their activity to Madras, the lease of which was granted to them by the local Raja in 1639. They subsequently built their factory here and also a small fort around their factory known as Fort St. George. Madras soon proved to be an advantageous place for trade with the Indonesian islands, which were known for their spices. Madras was raised to the rank of presidency in 1658, and all factories in Bengal and the Coromandel coast were subordinated to it. Under the supervision and control of many governors, Madras continued to flourish till 1746. After the end of the Carnatic War, Madras was returned to the English in 1748. Madras soon developed into a port city and an important industrial center. It has great attraction for the tourists. Its beaches are wonderful. The Marina Beach, which is about 6 kilometers long, is the second largest beach in the world. Other places which deserve special mention are Fort St. George, Presidency College, Southern Railway Headquarters, the Ripon Building, the Government Museum, the Madras High Court, the Madras University, Kindy National Park, Art Gallery, St. Thomas Church, and many temples such as Parth Sarthi Temple, Bombay, now Mumbai. The developments that led to the establishment of the English in Bombay is also quite interesting. Before establishing their settlements in Bombay, the English, first of all, established their factory at Surat in 1612 to control their trade on the west coast of India. But certain events helped them to establish themselves in Bombay, where they found themselves away from the Maratha and the Portuguese interference. It was a mere chance that the British ruler Charles II, 1660 to 1685, got Bombay as dowry from the Portugal ruler after his marriage with Princess Catherine in 1661. In 1668, the British ruler handed over the control of Bombay to the English East India Company in return for a nominal rent of $10. Soon, Bombay became the best naval station on the west coast of India because it was safe from the invasions of the Marathas as well as the loot of the Malabar pirates. Like Madras, Bombay was declared a presidency and governors began to be appointed one after the other. Under these governors, Bombay marched forward steadily. Its location on the seacoast gave it a special beauty. Its beaches, especially the Marine Drive, the Chowpatty, and the Juhu Beach, have endowed it with a serene charm. One can enjoy the evenings at the Gateway of India and watch the ships on the huge sea. Among the other attractions are the Hanging Garden, the Aquarium, the Prince of Wales Museum, the Zoo, the Art Gallery, the Victoria Terminus, Chhatrapati Shivaji Terminus, and the SL World. The Elephanta Caves near it are another attraction for the tourists. The Kamla Nehru Park, the Bhabha Atomic Research Center, etc., developed after independence, possess a great charm and beauty of their own. The discovery of crude oil near its coast in the seabed has further added to the importance of Bombay. The development of this area, which came to be known as Bombay High, has increased the importance of the already important metropolitan city, Calcutta, now Kolkata. In 1668, the English East India Company acquired the zamindari of 3 villages. Soon a factory was established there, and the whole area was fortified by a fort, known as Fort William, after the name of the British monarch William III, 1689 to 1702. But till the presence of strong Nawabs in Bengal, like Murshid Quli Khan and Ali Vardi Khan, the English company remained more or less a mere zamindar of the Nawabs. The company devoted its time towards the commercial affairs up to 1757, with the defeat of the Nawabs of Bengal in the Battle of Plassey in 1757 and the Battle of Buxar in 1764. The British became all-powerful in Bengal. The importance of Calcutta increased manifold. By the Regulatory Act of 1773, the Governor of Bengal was made the Governor-General of India, and both the presidencies of Madras and Bombay were put under his supremacy. Thus, Bengal gained much importance as also Calcutta. It remained the capital of British India till 1911. Calcutta, now Kolkata, has many tourist places like the Howrah Bridge, Rabindra Setu, the Victoria Memorial, the Botanical Garden, the Indian Museum, the Alipur Zoo, the Birla Planetarium, the Ramakrishna Mission, and the Belur Mutt. The Eden Gardens and National Library are its other attractions. Delhi. Delhi, the capital of India, is of great historical importance. It lies on the bank of the Yamuna River, a major tributary of Ganga River. The most significant topographic feature of Delhi is the Delhi Ridge, a culminating spur of the Aravalli Range. Now completely denuded, Within the triangle formed by the ridge and the Yamuna River have been born the famous multiple cities of Delhi, dating between about 1000 BCE and the 21st century CE. Delhi has a strong historical background owing to the fact that it was ruled over by some of the most powerful emperors in Indian history. The history of the city dates back to the time of Mahabharata, when it was known as Indraprastha, the city of Pandavas. According to the great epic, the place was originally a piece of barren land and was converted into a wonderful city by the efforts of the Pandavas. As other kings occupied the neighboring region, some other cities came up, like Lalkot, Siri, Dinpana, Kila Rai Pithora, Firozabad, Jahanpana, Tughlakabad, and Shahjahanabad. Later, these cities merged into one hustling and bustling metropolitan city, which finally emerged as the political capital of free India. Delhi has been a witness to the political turmoil for over 5 centuries. It was ruled by the Mughals in succession to Khaljis and Tughlaqs. In the year 1803, the city came under the British rule. In 1911, British shifted their capital from Calcutta to New Delhi. It was planned by Edward Lutyens. The new capital was inaugurated in 1932. It again became the center of all the governing activities. But the city has the reputation of throwing the one who sits on its throne. It included the British and the current political parties that have had the honor of leading free India. After independence in 1947, New Delhi was officially declared as the seat of the Government of India. During the partition of India, thousands of Hindu and Sikh refugees from West Punjab migrated to Delhi. Since then, the city has not looked back. Delhi presents a beautiful blend of varied cultures. The beauty of the city lies in the diversity it exhibits. In some parts, it is a garden city with beautiful parks, while in some places, it is crowded with heavy traffic. Turbaned Sikhs, colorfully dressed Rajasthani and Gujarati women, Muslim shopkeepers in Chandni Chowk area of Old Delhi, Tibetans and Ladakhis along Janpath, and Kashmiris in the handicraft emporia around Connaught Place all add to the cosmopolitan feel of the city. Soaring skyscrapers, posh residential colonies, and bustling commercial complexes can be seen adding on to its metropolitan character. This is complemented by the ancient historical monuments, the traditional and contemporary art and crafts from all over the country are available in boutiques and shopping arcades here. Other than this, Delhi has become the center stage for all the political activities in the country. The premier government, administrative and judiciary buildings are also located here. The leaders of the country run the nation and write the future of millions of people from Delhi itself.